Ah, you've returned. It is time for chapter 39. There is a particular quality to a shop in the final minutes before closing. The lights feel different. The shelves take on a slightly altered character, as though the objects within know the day is ending. Most last customers are unremarkable, tired people making late purchases, nothing worth remembering. But sometimes the last customer of the evening is someone the shopkeeper will not easily forget, not because of anything dramatic or loud, but because of something small, something noticed only after they have gone, something that should have been impossible. I have been in shops at closing time myself, in hours that most people would not choose to be shopping, and I have learned that not everything that enters a shop in those final minutes has come to buy something for themselves. A man ran a small general store on a quiet street in an older part of the city, methodical about closing, same routine every evening without variation. On the night in question, he was 10 minutes from locking up when the door opened. A middle-aged man entered, neatly dressed, quiet. He moved through the shop without hurry, selected a few items, brought them to the counter. The transaction was processed. The customer nodded politely and left. The shopkeeper returned to his routine. 5 minutes later, he stopped completely. The items the customer had purchased were still on the counter, untouched, as though no one had taken them at all. He checked the register. The transaction was recorded, the correct amount, the correct time, everything as it should be, except for one detail that had no reasonable explanation. He stood behind the counter and looked at the items for a long time. He reviewed what he remembered of the customer, the neatness, the unhurried movement through the shop, the particular items he had chosen, ordinary enough individually. But looking at them together, he noticed something about the combination that he had not registered during the transaction. They were not the purchases of someone doing ordinary late evening shopping. They were the kind of items sometimes left at certain places for certain purposes. Small, specific, chosen with an intention that had nothing to do with personal use. He had heard of such things. He had grown up in this part of the city and carried the kind of knowledge that older neighborhoods accumulate over generations. He understood what he was looking at, and he understood what it meant that the customer had left them behind. He locked the shop quickly and did not linger. He left the items where they were without touching them. He had enough understanding of certain things to know that moving them without knowing what they represented was unwise. He spoke to an older man he trusted the following morning, someone who had grown up in that part of the city and carried the kind of knowledge that older parts of older cities hold quietly for those willing to listen. He described the customer and the items carefully. The older man listened without interrupting, then asked what time the customer had arrived. He told him. The older man nodded slowly, said that certain hours in certain parts of the city were understood as hours when the boundary between the ordinary world and whatever ran alongside it grew thin, and that shops staying open late in those areas occasionally received customers from the wrong side of that boundary. He asked what he should do about the items on the counter. The older man told him carefully and specifically. He followed the instructions without deviation. He did not discuss what those instructions were with anyone else. He continued operating his shop for many more years. He adjusted his closing time by 15 minutes, earlier than before, always locked up and gone before the hour the customer had arrived. He never explained this adjustment to anyone. Some changes are easier to maintain when they go unexamined. I have thought about that shopkeeper often, about the quiet courage it takes to simply continue, to open the shop the following morning and maintain the routine of a life that has briefly been interrupted by something it had no framework for. Most people who encounter such things make one of two choices. They leave entirely, or they adapt, quietly, without drama. They adjust their closing time by 15 minutes. They follow the instructions of someone older and wiser, and they carry what they know carefully for the rest of their lives. I have always had a particular respect for those who choose the second path, who decide that the world alongside ours is simply part of the world, and conduct themselves accordingly, with their eyes open and their door locked, just a little earlier than before. He told me this story once, quietly, in the particular way of someone releasing something they have carried for a long time. He said the thing that stayed with him most was not the items on the counter, not the impossible transaction recorded in his register. It was the customer's face, perfectly ordinary, perfectly calm, entirely unremarkable, the face of someone conducting routine business, as though visiting a shop in the final minutes of the evening was simply part of whatever passed for a normal day. On the other side of things, he never saw the customer again, but he told me that sometimes, late at night, when the shop was locked and the street outside was quiet, he thought about whoever had sent that customer, about what errand had been run, about what purpose those items had served, and about whether, somewhere in that older part of the city, whatever had needed them had been satisfied. Another whispered story from Japan, shared quietly here beside the kotatsu. If you have ever served someone, or spoken to someone, or passed someone on a quiet street late at night, and felt afterward that something about the encounter did not quite belong to the ordinary world, you know where to find me. I am always here, beside the kotatsu, waiting.